Welcome back to the Fronczak Files. I'm Tracey Hastings.
And I'm Paul Jack Fronczak. My story began with a kidnapping, an abandonment, and a lifetime of unanswered questions. But it didn't stay my story for long. It became a journey that connected thousands of people searching for the same thing, who they really are.
Today, we're going behind the scenes of that journey with the person who helped bring Paul's story to life on the page. Best-selling author, journalist, and storyteller, Alex Tresniowski.
Together, Alex and I wrote The Foundling and True Identity, 2 books that pull back the curtain on everything that happened after the headlines. From the search for the truth to the discoveries that changed everything.
In this episode, we'll talk about how those books came to be, what it was like documenting one of the most complex family mysteries in modern history, and what Alex learned about truth, trauma, and redemption along the way.
And I remember Alex and I pulling into the hospital parking lot going, are we just going to just walk in and go find this guy?
Really, we had no plan. It was less prepared.
Right, no plan.
Well, we had one ace in the hole, which is that you could say, you couldn't prove, but you could say you were his nephew. So technically you were his family, but if they asked you to prove it, you couldn't. You had no ID or anything. So, but it worked. It worked. That got us through the first door.
It did. And I remember they had a big security door and a camera right there. And we had to hit the buzzer. And Alex was like, do we just hit the button? I said, yeah, let's just do it. Right. And they opened it.
Well, I think we had to explain to them. Yeah, we're here to visit Lenny Rosenthal.
I'm here to see my uncle. Yeah.
Do you have a Lenny? That's right. We called. Do you have a Lenny Rosenthal there? They said, yeah, he's in room such and such. He had his own private room. So we just snuck by the nurse station. We snuck by, doctors, just kept our heads down. Very chilly Palmer.
Very chilly Palmer.
And just peeked into this room. And there he was. This great myth of crime, Lenny Rosenthal, who was portrayed to us as a monster and was just a fragile old guy hooked up to like 30 things, sitting there. And we spent the next half hour with him before anybody showed up. We were completely inappropriate visitors, but he was game and he talked and, gave us some of our best leads. And of course, nothing he said to us we could ever trust as being true or not.
It's like he had moments of clarity, and then all of a sudden he'd go, the nurses are trying to kill me. They want my money. And I'm like, what?
That one over there, yeah. Well, what happened is this is the first time I glimpsed the kind of evil in him, because he was talking to us just like a regular old person, and then a nurse came in and he looked up at her and his face transformed into this raging kind of like, that's the one, she's trying to kill me. And then he would talk about a famous 1950s singer that he loved.
That's right.
I forget her name, but he would just go on that little diatribe a little bit. We had to keep pulling him back. Like, what about the twins? What about the twins? You introduced yourself to him
as Jack. Yeah.
That I was one of the twins. And that's when his memory started coming back. Now, again, we had the disadvantage of he's hopped up with medication and probably some kind of relaxant. So he's half out of his mind anyway, because he was 80. And then the other half was gone because of the medication. So we didn't have a reliable narrator there at that point, but we figured let's just get what we can. And so, in between moments of just drifting away, he did provide us with some color and some stories and what turned out to be our most plausible explanation for what happened to Joe. All right, Paul? Because he told us the story of the staircase.
That's right.
Not to spoil anything if you haven't read the book, but I'm assuming most of these people have. But again, we had this piece of information that we couldn't verify, couldn't have even a second source confirm, but that really felt like something to find this link to your family and get in there and have nobody bother us for a half an hour.
And like you said, Alex, it's like we heard all these horror stories from different people, and all of a sudden we are right there in front of this guy.
Was he more benign than we expected? Yeah, because he's an old man in a hospital. But I do remember we asked him his thoughts about something, and he said something like, he called himself like a really good person. He's like, Atlantic City is full of bad people. I'm a good person, and the secret to success and to living long is don't hang around with bad people. And we were like, what? What is this guy talking about?
Meanwhile, he was off the grid for 50 years, right?
that was his philosophy of life. And I'm like, oh, so he, as many monsters in life probably don't realize they're monsters. They just are people working their own stuff through. And he was terribly abusive to his daughter and his wife, and did many other things as far as we know. But we found a broken version of him in that hospital room, and got the story that really, I believe, that finished the first book. Yeah, it's sort of like, we have to take this. That's the best knowledge we have now of what might have happened to Jill.
And let's not forget about the really pivotal thing that happened with us was when we did the radar sweep of my grandma's backyard. Remember, we paid the guy to do the radar sweep, ground penetrating radar, and he marked 3 spots.
It was your grandmother lived in this old 3-story white house, like every other house in Atlantic City back in the 60s. Plain but very pretty, and kind of almost Victorian, and there was an empty lot next to her. And I don't remember what had been there. At some other house I got.
No, that was her house, but the house was gone.
Oh, that was her house, right? Her house got torn down, but we found pictures of it. And we saw there was a backyard. So, our thinking was, if something bad happened to Jill and they had to get rid of her, Bertha, I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the grandma. Was it?
Yeah.
Bertha.
Yeah. She was the matriarch. So anything would have gone through her, any kind of crime or anything. She was sort of holding everybody together, Lenny and your dad. They were tough enough on their own, but she was sort of presiding over this. We thought, would they have buried her in the backyard? So that was our premise. Can we leave that stone unturned, Paul? And it turned out to be, somebody owned that lot. They decided to hold us up, like, completely extort us. He's like, you can't get on my lot. And we did the sonar reading, not sonar, but yeah, maybe sonar.
Ground penetrating, yeah.
Where a guy came in, ground penetrating radar, and that cost a couple of bucks. And but he gave us 4 spots, one really good spot. He goes, what I'm picking up is not pipes or branches or anything. There's something there. So we put a big X on this property and took pictures of and left, and then started negotiating to get on it. And the guy just cleaned us out, Paul. I'm pretty sure he was like, I'm selling it soon. So if you go in today, you can have it today and do whatever you want, $2,000 on a total whim. But, and thank God I bought a tent, because my wife told me, bring a tent. You're digging up bodies in Atlantic City, bring a tent. It's going to be hot. And she was right. And we set up a tent.
Alex, the cool thing was, we stopped at Lowe's or Home Depot and bought shovels. And I got a picture of you standing by the car with all the shovels in the back and the tarp.
It was 4 green shovels. We're like, we'll take these, and don't ask us what we're doing.
I mean, it's Atlantic City. You think they're
right.
gonna? They probably didn't even notice.
Yeah.
No, and then we started digging, and we realized, oh,
it's like 100 degrees out.
We're too old for this. So I think it was you, Paul, who walked across the street, and there was a kid, maybe 20 or 25, was working on a construction site nearby, and you said, you want $100? Come help us dig this hole. And he was just so strapping and young that he just said, sure. And he grabbed a shovel and basically probably dug 60, 70% of that hole, because once he got low enough, he was the only guy that can fit in the hole. And then we were bystanders. So the dirt's coming out, and
then he hit the water.
We got all the way down to the bottom of the water table. Because that's Atlantic City, it's very close to the ocean. So he maybe had 5 feet to dig down, and then some water starts coming up. So we were kind of done. And I think you told him, let's do two more feet this way, and we'll give you some more. And he kept digging, and then pink, that's where we hear a clink, and some bones come up.
He held it up, and he said, I've been digging holes in Atlantic City for like 20 years. Never saw any bones. And he held the shovel up.
And it was small bones, and, and some ceramic stuff and everything. But, there were bones. It looked like a femur of some kind. So we didn't know what to make of it. We didn't know if it was evidence. Were we removing it? Were we going to be in trouble? I do remember, was it 2 girls who walked into the lot and saw us digging and asked what you were digging for? And Paul said, I lost my contact lens.
That tracks. That sounds about right.
And, but yeah, then they drifted off. They got a little bored, and so we didn't know what we were doing at any point, really. So, but they did dig out some bones. We went through them, put them in a little box, and I think I sent pictures of them to the National Museum of History in New York City, and found a whatever you call these guys. I don't know. They do the bone work, and DNA it and say and that was listen that Paul again was in a situation where do I want to find these bones or do I not want there to be any bones? Because if I find bones, that means Jill's likely dead. If those are her bones, obviously dead. So, or do I want the mystery to continue and just have this big emptiness where Jill should be? So, very conflicting emotions, right, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember just when Shane, that was his name, he held up the shovel with the bones in it, and you could hear a pin drop on that busy Atlantic City street. It got real quiet. And I thought for a second, I'm like, could that possibly be my sister? And you start thinking about all these crazy things. And then we moved on to the next thing. It's like, okay, we'll get them analyzed and we'll know. We were moving so much that we didn't have time to just really reflect on what was happening because it was happening so fast.
In retrospect, I probably would have said a little prayer there or something, but we didn't really mark the moment. We all just sort of, as you said, there was a moment of silence. There were three other guys there who were filming parts of it, and it just felt silent. Like it really did feel like a solemn moment. And we wouldn't know the answer to what those bones were for another 3-4 days. So you just had to hop back on a red eye again and just get back to Emmy.
Back to normal life.
After digging up bones in your grandmother's backyard.
Did we even have time to have dinner? I mean, that would have been weird to have dinner, so casually.
Not the weirdest thing you guys did, but
I got a picture right here. We hung out at Angelo's Fairmount Tavern. And that was like it was there from like 1920 or something really, they were there forever. That's where everybody would hang out. And so we kind of made it our base camp. And then later when we shot the film, when we were in Atlantic City, we made it our film base camp. So we had a lot of meals there, a lot of ice cold Stella, because that's what they had on tap.
Well, there was a strategy to that too, because a lot of old people walk in and we would just say, hey, take us back to when it was Ducktown. And a lot of them knew the Rosenthals or knew something had been torn down.
They all knew Nicky Scarfo's house.
When we didn't have a specific task, we just hang out in this bar, which was really hard work, Paul. But
it was grueling. The Italian food was so good.
Yes. And the beers came, they were way frosty. They were very cold. So that was hard work.
It was terrible.
But and we hooked up with one of the neighbors, the one that lived next door. Her daughter or her granddaughter worked at the bar.
That's right.
We approached her to find out more. That's right. And she blew us off too. Not original, and then, but yeah, that was a little hub of information for us because it literally it looked the same as it did 60 years ago or 50 years ago. And that was part of the romance of the trip too. So every weird thing was a nice, because of the way Paul is, we could just sit down and have a beer and talk about it and see where it fit into the story. And, it really was an unusual process from my point of view as a book writer. That's not usually how it is. It's just we're interviewing people and we're going on what they remember. But here it was happening right in front of me. So a very unique story made possible by Paul Fronczak and his relentless quest for the truth.
Well, it was so surreal walking down those neighborhoods. You have Nicky Scarfo's house here, my grandma's house. And then we're walking on the boardwalk and you think about all the history that happened on that boardwalk. It's just, the whole thing was just surreal.
Yeah. And all pre-casinos and but what it retained was Atlantic City always retained the grimy parts of it. The casinos did not lift Atlantic City out of poverty, out of being a crappy borderline city. You have the casinos that are nice and the rest of the area is just run down and still has the feeling of when it was Ducktown, when it was named Ducktown because people raised ducks by the water and sold and consumed ducks. So it always felt that way to me still, the allure of it, that it was just sort of this living, breathing city where bad things happen. And that's sort of the feeling I had, that's where your family's problems started, your grandfather's gambling problem.
My grandfather went missing. He owed some bad people some money. I guess he had a barber shop and he had a card game in the back of the barbershop, right? And
Back in the 50s and 60s, yeah.
yeah, and he owed them some money. No, that was earlier.
The 40s and 50s, right.
Yes. Yeah. And he went missing. And that's when my grandma decided to marry the taffy maker. You can't make this stuff up.
Well, we also found newspaper articles when Bertha was abandoned by, this gambler, right? I mean, and she's like, "Oh, my husband's left me," and it was like they played it up. It's like grieving, bawling,
She was evicted from her home with my dad and his brother.
people in town donated food for her for a while, but eventually her and her two kids, you know, Gilbert and Lenny, um, had to get kicked out into the street. So again, that's we could see right where it all started, where everything started to go really wrong, and maybe we were wrong. We speculated about this in the book. Did Where was the crack in this family, this lineage of a family, where everything really did start to go wrong? Because a lot of people told us the Rosenthals just weren't a normal family, right, Paul? They said they could take anything good in their lives and turn it into shit, and that's just what they did. They had a hard edge to them. Your other uncle that you met said, "You got a streak in you, just like I got a streak in me." That's a Rosenthal streak. Some kind of fissure in the psychology of this family that led to all this, and that's where it all happened, right in Atlantic City. And we still don't know the extent of it. We don't know how intertwined your family was with the Philadelphia Atlantic City mob, other than to suspect that since gambling was such a part of it, there had to be some connection there.
Which leads us to the next most important thing that we did was we held off as long as we could opening a missing persons case on my missing twin sister, Jill. Because once you do that, you're kind of shut out and you really can't do anything. But I think we reached a point where we're like, we can't do anything else on our own. So I finally went to the Atlantic City Police Department to open a missing persons case on my twin sister, Jill. And that was a fiasco in itself.
The first funny thing there was it was just the AP police department, Atlantic City Police Department, a little bureaucratic headquarters. A lady behind a window, maybe she's 60 years old, and she says, when did the person go missing? And Paul had to say 55 years ago. And the lady's like, what? And then she said, have you tried Google?
No, I
He
didn't
was
even
dead
think
And
of
I looked at
that.
Alex like,
Yeah.
what
And I was
the
like,
hell?
well, and then she
Yeah.
said, give me a minute. And then she turned away from us and I could see her Googling it.
Yeah.
So
Like she's going to solve it right there.
I think she said, no, she's missing. So we're like, okay, well, I think even we joked about it in the book, like, hey, we're not going to turn down any help. So let her Google it. Maybe she'll find something. But and then became this other bizarre part of the story, which is, we were able to pull a detective out of the back room who just overheard Paul and I talking. And he goes, I'm very interested in these cold cases. I'll help you with it. And gave us a case number, right, Paul? His name, his number, every contact and everything. So we're like, this is great. That's what we needed. And that became a 2-year nightmare where at the end of it, we discovered the case had never even been opened.
Gave us a fictitious missing persons case number because I tried to open the case with NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They're like, we'd like to work with you, but we can't because this is not a real missing persons case number. So even after all these years, it's still trying to be buried.
We figured out that somebody or something in Atlantic City Police Department just didn't want to keep opening the story. Now, it's possible that it was just too old and they have a lot of other people to worry about, in current missing cases. And we always knew we were going to be at the back of the line of any missing child case. But this guy gave us hope because he said, I love the old stuff. Let me look into it for you.
Well, he said his dad was a cop back then, too.
That's right. But he ended up doing nothing and obfuscating for 2 years. When we'd call in for updates, he wasn't around. Finally, we had Nino call his superior, I believe, and say, what's the runaround? And eventually we found out no case had ever been opened. And the Atlantic City Police Department still hasn't lifted a finger. So there might have been some connection between your dad, Gilbert, and the ACPD that we're unsure of.
Because supposedly my dad works in some capacity in law enforcement in that time in Atlantic City.
We couldn't get those records either. So, it was like everything else. Just a wall went up, and we're like, at least the police are not going to do that, but they did. and we never found out why they didn't open the case. We never were able to talk to that guy again. And luckily now, I think you have the state troopers working on it, and they seem to have a little more integrity.
Well, we'll just suffice it to say we haven't gotten much further, despite the help that we supposedly are getting. The search has not been advanced.
Well, are they the ones that found the potential, Jill, somewhere in Michigan? Not really. They did not. No.
They did not. No, that was given to us. That was given to Nakamic as an anonymous tip by someone that knows this woman.
That somehow Paul overheard, right?
Yes, that we were fed the information by a detective with New Jersey State Police, and we figured that they probably weren't supposed to do that. But thank goodness they did. Otherwise, we would have no idea that this woman even exists.
Well, that's what's so frustrating. They're working on your case, and they're not going to tell you what they're doing.
Right. I don't understand that.
Or their time frame or anything. So it was either somebody was very willing to help or somebody didn't want anything to do with you, Paul. And the wall came down, and that was it. And legally, law enforcement wise, that's what we found. Very few people want to help. Maybe it's too old a case. I don't know. Maybe there are secrets to it. And then some people, like the babysitter, can't wait to help more. They're dealing with their own guilt about it, and so they want to help. So it was always yes or completely no. And that's still, I'm sure, Tracey, you're finding that to be the case. A lot of turn downs, a lot of I guess people don't really want to reopen the past a lot of times. It's human nature, maybe. What's gone is gone, don't worry about it. So pretty remarkable stuff, Paul.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, it's the journey has been fantastic, and we're still on it. And like I told you just the other day, we're still finding out new things that I never thought we would find. So,
Well, I became a sort of a drop in, drop out guy. I mean, you have never stopped. The team you've put together now is phenomenal. Like, I was looking for somebody's phone number, and your team found it in 2 minutes. You know,
Emily and Colleen, yeah, they're the best.
yes, and boom. So you have this group of people now, and still Nino, the investigator, will do any kind of crazy stuff, usually for free, that we ask him to do because he's into it, and he loves Paul. So you've got the team now to really, take these last steps. And there's only a couple of really big unanswered questions. Who was the nurse? What really did happen to Jill? Is there any chance she's still alive? Big question.
It's and just so our listeners know, we're really getting close to identifying the kidnapper. I think it's going to be soon.
We did lose one source who died on us, who was the Lorraine's daughter, Norma, who helped us with a lot of information. Again, some of it might have been reliable, some of it might not have been, about what happened and when it happened and why there was a kidnapping. And so a lot of information from back then, but she passed away. That's a lot of your sources are going to be passing away. We lost a few right in the middle of it, including Lenny. Just very sad to see generations just fading away and taking with them these secrets that nobody will ever know. So very secretive family, very cagey family, these Rosenthals, and that, it couldn't have been a harder family to try to dig up.
Literally. So I always equate movie scenes that happen in real life situations. And when Alex and I were able to find the cemetery that my mom and dad are buried in, my biological mom and dad, it was straight out of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. We were running around this huge cemetery, just trying to find the grave marked unknown. I mean, it was, if you had a wide shot on that, we both started on opposite ends, and we just running, trying to find thousands of headstones.
It had to be a 20-acre facility. It was a vet hospital for veterans of wars, and there were no gravestones. Everything was an interned plaque below the surface of the grass. So you literally had to be right on top of it to look down and see the name. and we looked out at a field of just rows and rows, almost like Arlington Cemetery. Not that bad, but even they have crosses and the names up top. You had to look at these rusted up brass memorials and just find the right name. And God, that took forever. And I think we got lucky and stumbled onto it. But even with the key, they're like, "Oh no, go to that field and go down," and we still couldn't find them. So again, another weird moment where it was euphoric, and also that's where your mom and dad are, for better or worse. And we might have, you guys might be going back there sometime soon.
Hopefully with shovels.
That might be another episode of this. So, but it's funny in this story, the dead don't always stay buried. It's a weird thing to say, but there's been a few, instances involving graves and grave sites and bodies. So it's, another part of the madness of the story, and a real metaphor for trying to unravel the messiness of your life, and which is all the trauma dumped on you by your folks and their folks and all that. This is what you're trying to excavate, and it's just heavy, deep stuff. So you have the right temperament for it, and your team now seems very mirthful. So you got to finish the adventure.
So Alex, part of this podcast, we wanted to really get in touch with people's emotions. So Tracey, do you have any questions for Alex about how he's handled this whole journey?
I do. My first question is, it's obvious that you became personally involved in this story. It's impossible not to. I think anybody that has a brush with Jack slash Paul, you cannot stay outside of this story. Uh, You absolutely do. And so, in writing both the Foundling and True Identity, how did you balance out your personal relationship with him and also keep him as a character and be able to develop him in that way?
It became a challenge because, even as a reporter at People Magazine, I would go and report a story and become, personally, I just empathize with people so much that I see the sadness in everything. And so then I have to step back and be like Paul did, just step back and be a neutral observer. And my solution to that was that I eliminated myself from the book altogether. It's all Paul doing this stuff, not me. I mean, basically that's was the truth of it. Paul did everything. I just stood around and watched, and we had beers afterwards. But so I didn't need to be in the book, and I wasn't. And then I was able to just do what Paul does, which is sort of just tell this man's story. And Paul, you're sometimes emotionally closed off. Um, you know, um,
No, what?
I don't know if I've even told that, but so there were times where I had to push him a little bit, like, "Paul, what did you feel like here? What did And I could always tell in a situation that he would prefer to deflect the real emotion than explore it. Like meeting your sister in the mobile home. Your first thing was like, "Man, that place smelled like cat pee," and instead of like absorbing the incredible impact of this moment, there's Paul making a joke. And so that became part of the book. I mean, that's who you are, Paul. And, I divorced myself from being your friend and just told the story of your search because I was there and I saw it happen. I saw you struggling with what to buy for your sister so we could bring a present to her. And I think we decided on a fake orchid. Um, and so you were a man standing on this porch for half an hour, knocking your brains out with a fake plant in your hand. And it was just moments like that where you could see the human pathos of this story, and what are you doing at this trailer park, across the country from where you live, and how does this tie in with your past, and how's this going to help you? So I was able to just put myself in Paul's place as much as I could, and hopefully I did a decent job, Paul, of as a ghostwriter. I've most of the books I've written, I've ghostwritten with somebody. This is somebody who has an incredible thing happen to them. They need somebody to write it. So I've been good. I found I can easily tell stories in people's authentic voices. Probably because I'm a human cipher and I have no personality of my own. But what happens is I'm able to get in there and be Paul in the story and tell it in the first person, and it was immediate and everything. So it's a good question. I felt all the emotion of all these moments, and I would come back home and say, man, I don't know how Paul's going to deal with this, and what a heavy trip this is, and so it was always there. But writing a book is the beauty of that is you have all the room in the world to explore it. This wasn't a magazine article; it was the full story. And I don't think Paul held much back.
Hearing you talk about your experiences with him, shows again along this way that anybody that has come in contact with him carries story, it reverberates with them, and it stays with them forever. And as someone who read the books before I knew him, um, you 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 nailed him spot on. He You definitely give the reader a true picture of who he is as a person, uh, from the jokester, the very serious side, the investigator, all the aspects of his personality come through, and you really feel like you know him. And then when I did get to know him over the last 10 months that we've been working together on the podcast, it was a great precursor to getting to know him myself. You definitely nailed him.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. And Paul's over there like, hello, I'm in the room. You're talking about me.
I was just thinking about, there's been so many times where Tracey says, oh, now I understand what happened in the book there because I can see it happening with you right now. And I'm like, Alex.
We didn't want to pretend. I mean, there was no reason to make it melodramatic when it wasn't. I mean, it was often a confused guy stumbling through an investigation, which was the truth of it, right? I mean, you didn't have any experience as an investigator. Um, and it was just stumbling around and, dealing with the emotions as they happen, getting the phone call from CC Moore, learning that somebody had brain cancer and was going to die on us. All that stuff just happened in real time. And, I was privileged enough to be there for this story, but I felt a lot of it. I'm sure you do, Tracey, and I know you do, Paul. And, there are times when you have to contemplate how heavy it is of a story and how tragic it is. And that's what makes a good story. Human nature is really messed up, and when you start seeing the underbelly of human nature, man, it does stay with you.
And the fact that so many people have said, oh my God, if you said that this was a movie, I wouldn't believe it because it just seems too far fetched. And it was just real and it was really happening right in front of us.
I don't know why we've had so much trouble finding a way to dramatize it other than telling we had the one documentary, which was okay, but, to both of us, it seems like this would be a great 8-episode series, or it's too much information for a movie, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, but if you can unfold it over 8 episodes, this is a natural and it's all true, and but it's so unique as a story. People in Hollywood now look for stories with IP potential, intellectual property. Can this be spun off into a series, and or is it just a one-off story, which are harder and harder to produce? So you're sitting on this one-off story, but that said, you've also found a way where if it were a series about you, the next season could be about somebody else in the story. There's a million DNA stories that are similar to Paul's, and you hear from these people all the time with incredible details and incredible drama of their own.
That's what we're actually doing for season 2 of the Fronczak Files podcast. We're actually helping real people solve their identities. And it's amazing. Yeah.
I think it's great because you'll find out that what you went through and thinking it was very unique to you is actually more universal than you realize. That there were other people who got locked away in a room, or got beat up by their mom, or whatever it was. It happens a lot, and most of it is hush hush. So I think you're uniquely set up to be somebody who could help people do what they are afraid to do, which is dive in. Okay, I'm going to find out the truth of my family, and that first leap is not so easy. You were determined, and you had no choice really because you didn't know who you were. But a lot of people are hesitant to dig up the past, as it were, and I think you at least can get the people that want to do that off the ground. And I think you should have your own show just doing that. On top of a dramatic series. But I have a feeling that people are just always waiting for the final answer about Jill. Like that's the last piece of the puzzle that hasn't fit in. And without it, there's not a complete story, and I don't agree with that because you may never find it.
Yeah. But I mean, it's the journey sometimes is better than the final destination. In real life, you don't always get the answers that you're looking for, but it's how you process getting there. That's important. It's the living.
Right. Which is contrary to the laws of drama and conflict, which are, we need a resolution. We need our hero to have gone through this journey, and at the end of it, he's changed. How? What happened? So are we missing the last piece? I don't even think so. I mean, if we never find out who the actual kidnapper was, I don't know how you feel about it. You probably couldn't live with it, but I think that's, it would be great to really finally solve that case that the FBI never could solve unless they solved it and didn't tell us. But, or if we never find out exactly what happened to Jill, I still feel there's a complete story here, emotionally and stuff. And really the ending to me is when you can get your name, when you can, and I think you guys are working on that, when you can lay claim and become Jack Rosenthal officially is a big moment for me, to see that happen to you.
Yeah, that's one of the components of the story that we're still continuing to work on, because the reality is that Paul Fronczak is dead. And so he's living the life of a dead man.
There's book 3, Alex.
Living the life of a dead man.
And there's a living man who bureaucratically cannot be surfaced. It's bizarre. It's strange, but it's not so easy.
It's such an unusual case. And so, yeah, we're hoping that maybe potentially there might be some type of legal assistance out there to help start pushing this in that direction for him to start the steps that are required to prove that he is legally who his DNA says he is, so he can assume his true legal identity.
Right. And there's no actual mechanism to do that. It's not like you can walk in somewhere and take a blood test and, oh, okay, you are Jack Rosenthal. It's not there, so you guys have to almost find the way to do that.
It's almost trailblazing the process for doing this.
Yeah. Like why are you with a dead man's name? I mean, it's crazy.
That's so true.
You're walking around. I wonder if you'll be able to answer to Jack when it comes around to that. Or are people going to say Jack and you're not going to turn around?
He does when I call him Jack, but
Well, have you only known him as Jack?
that's all I've only ever known him as Jack.
That's pretty cool. And is that what you're trying to do, Paul? Because I call you Paul still, but you're trying to integrate it into your life here and there?
Yeah, so pretty much, I would say pre-Fronczak Files, people know me as Paul. And then after, people know me as Jack. And I do like Jack Fronczak. It's got a nice old PI name.
But at work, for instance, you can't get paid as Jack Rosenthal.
Right. I'm everything I have that's all my legal documents are Paul Fronczak.
Driver's license is Paul Fronczak.
I think we did find Jack Rosenthal's original Social Security number. Yeah, and the birth certificate. Was it Social Security number on that? Maybe not.
No, but I've got the birth certificate and Jill's too.
I think we determined that the parents had to take a step to get the Social Security number, which they probably never took.
At that time, yeah, there was a process for applying for a Social Security number.
So they probably never did that. So again, Jack Rosenthal is somewhere out there in the ether and doesn't exist as an official person. So it's just a bizarre thing. I don't know how that plays with your mind and your psychology, but I think when you get that name and you become Jack, for real, I don't know why. It's symbolic, but I think that'll be a nice moment.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, and we'll have a big ass party that day.
Lots of Heineken.
Let's get everybody to Atlantic City.
Let's do it.
The team wants to go. Emily and Colleen and
yes. Yeah. We definitely want to go. There's a lot of research that needs to be done on the ground. Not everything is digitized at this point, documents and official records. So places we need to knock on the doors and go into and ask to see paperwork. And part of that is getting him to be able to assume his true identity so that this paperwork is not redacted, that they will give him all of his information as Jack Rosenthal and allow him to see everything. Right now, anything we request is going to be redacted, if they'll even give it.
And I think that applied to the kidnapping. You had because you weren't the real Paul, they wouldn't let you in on anything regarding that case, even though you were researching it. So it's like, well, if you try to be Paul, well, you're not Paul. And if you try to be Jack, well, you're not Jack. You can't open the doors, and it's going to take effort on the ground, knocking, and some sympathetic person to say, here's how you have to do it. Or you hire an expensive lawyer. And from the beginning, this has been a threadbare operation for all of us.
It still is.
It's not like we have a ton of money. Nino did almost everything pro bono. The guy took our last $2,000 for the excavation, but that's how it's been. It's been not even fundraising. It's just been our pockets, and that's that makes it a little slower, I guess. Because yeah, if we could hire a hotshot lawyer, maybe they would be able to open these doors quicker.
What type of evolution did you see in the story between the foundling and true identity? So you obviously started speaking again with one another about potentially doing a second book as things started to unravel. Uh, and so as as far as he goes, as far as where he was at with his story and how he was feeling about as things were unfolding and moving forward between the two books when you did come back together to do true identity, what changes in him did you see?
It definitely felt different, Paul. I think what triggered book two was the anonymous tip. I know who the baby is, which is again a weird thing to get an email that says that.
Like All the President's Men, right? That was Deep Throat.
And and that triggers this new investigation, right? Where hey, maybe we can find out the identity of this guy, and but it did feel a little different. It didn't. I don't think it had all the I shouldn't say charm, but that sense of great, the exhilaration of finding stuff out. Maybe was a little missing for me the second time around, and because it was frustrating. It was we were sick of people saying no, I can't help. It was maddening, and every time we needed stuff and it just wasn't available to us. Like, why can't we know this truth? What's holding it up? And then, but we did meet a lot of people who stepped forward, like the babysitter, filled in huge parts of the story. Um, it just had its own rhythm, though, a little different emotionally. Paul, I think you were the same way. You could treat it as a story and not um, as this, deeply personal thing at the time that you're doing the work. Because if you were, you wouldn't be able to do the work. So it felt like, okay, we're going to butt heads again. We're going to we're going to knock on doors again. It's all going to start up again where nobody's going to help us. And which turned out to be true. But nevertheless, there was a whole nother arc in that story. And now there's a third arc that you guys are working on. It's astonishing. So every part of this journey, the first book was its own thing, and then the second book was its own thing. And I don't know if this story will ever let us go, Tracey. I mean, it's every mystery solved opens two more mysteries. That's how it's felt.
It absolutely does. Yes. As soon as we get a scrap of information that, yes, this is what we were looking for, but now it creates five more questions.
I mean, the big discovery, like, hey, I know who you are, Jack. Oh, by the way, you got a twin who's been missing for 50 years. It's like, oh, crying out loud. And that seems to be how it goes. More questions, just always generating more questions. And that's where the real price for you has been, Paul. There's not an end date to this. This could go on and on and on. And that's got to be emotionally taxing for you also. And have you ever thought, let me just lay this down?
Never. Not for a second.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, I I don't know what you see as the end point, Paul, whether it's solving both or solving one.
You know what's funny, Alex? Just a couple of weeks ago, we just found out that I probably really wasn't abandoned on July 2nd. That was a cover up right there. And I believe we think it's like July 7th or something because it and the cop said that he ran this huge campaign to try to find my parents, but we can't find anything.
Yeah, he said he ran ads in everywhere, and there was never a single ad that turned up on any search. Now the date things that implies the cooperation of the Newark Police Department in this cover up, or maybe once the FBI got pulled into that's when numbers were manipulated and stuff. Hard to figure out. Cannot get those FBI files open. Every time you try, you're told it's an ongoing investigation, and there never was even an investigation into what happened to Jack. So
Yeah, not for Jack and Jill. That was just strictly for Paul.
Yeah. I mean, technically, Jack Thomas Rosenthal is a missing person as well. Technically.
that's why we went on that. And yeah, that's right. But we only filed for Jill. We didn't even file for Jack.
Could you imagine the look on that lady's face if I would have said, I need to find myself too? Oh,
I know I'm right here, but I've got to find my identity. She would say, "Have you tried Google?"
During season one, we had a guest on who worked on this case from the DNA perspective. Dr. Angela Williamson came on and spoke about her place in all of this, and she refers to him as a living doe, a living John Doe, which are very uncommon. Typically, most John Does are deceased. But here's someone who truly does not have his identity and
I think that's the official term too.
is
There,
a
it's
living John Doe. Yes,
a
and they're
living
incredibly rare. He's one
or
of
a
I'm a
living
very
unicorn.
unknown or
few. Yeah,
something very. Yeah, it's spooky description, but
right.
that should be the name. That should be the name of the third book, A Living John
The
Doe.
living John
Like it,
Doe.
yeah.
Um, and that's where you can really get into the psychology of it. I don't know how we pry it out of you, Paul, but
Well,
We're
honestly,
trying, aren't we,
Alex,
Alex?
between Emily, Colleen, and Tracey, they've really helped me expand my human emotions
oh, good
and
going,
opening up.
guys, good going. I mean, the opportunity presented itself to have hypnotherapy. And everyone told me, don't have him do it. Hypnotherapy does work and it can unleash everything all at once. And that is a trauma that few people can handle if he actually does access memories and stuff. So, and Paul was like, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, both said your walls are too high and too thick. We just can't break down your walls. I'm like, what?
They didn't operate out of an office on the Las Vegas Strip, did they?
Yeah, out of the CVS.
Or behind a pharmacy. Maybe we need a world-class
Maybe we need to do some
Any
research,
hypnotherapists
right?
that are listening out
but,
there, we'd love to talk with you because I think that I might have been there if something happened to Jill. At least I probably have some answers locked up in my head.
yeah, I mean, we never considered you as a witness, but you were, and at an impossible age to remember anything, but maybe not. That's just it's an unlifted stone, and Paul doesn't want to have that. So if anybody's listening who doesn't work on the Strip but has a good practice, please call into these guys. You'd be really helping.
We appreciate the plug. Thanks,
Yeah,
Alex.
well said. Well said.
Actually, I've done hypnotherapy. It was amazing for me. So I have the name of somebody in New York, but actually, no, she moved out to the West Coast. I should look into that. But again, I don't know if that's the best thing for Paul personally.
I think it's a great way to go.
But the vault unlocked and everything, if there is anything there, rushing out. I mean, it's been said that kids who witness violence, even at that age, bear the scars, and it's still there in some way. They don't understand it. They don't know what they saw, but it never goes away. So that's more digging. There are layers in Paul's brain that we want to dig into and find stuff in. And
we love digging, Alex. That's what we do at the Fronczak Files.
And he's a great experimental subject. He's like, do what you got to do, dig it out of me.
Always game for it, right?
Yeah.
MK Ultra.
Yes, that's
Jeez.
my favorite. I love that. Yeah, have we tried PCP or LSD?
We haven't tried PCP. No.
Yeah, you might have to take some and stand for 52 hours, and then we'll get something out of you.
If we get answers, it's worth it.
No, it's I try never to forget the real human tragedies of these stories, and I'm talking about your mom and your dad. And I really felt for the Rosenthal family as I saw this unfolding as a fractured family. Many people have families that there are fissures in, and you never talk to your sister again for 20 years, and you don't even remember why. And that happens a lot. And that seemed to be the case with the Rosenthals. And ultimately, it's just a real sad story, and that's why, Paul, I think you've been this, you've tried to not let it scrape the bottom too much. Just come along with me on this adventure. I'm game for it. Come with me. I can handle it. You always had to tell people I can handle the truth. And they would tell you can't handle the truth. And you're like, I can't. Let me just give it to me. And that spirit keeps this thing going. So you got pulled in too, Tracey. So it's a lifetime commitment.
That's a fact, Jack.
That's a fact.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I was able to provide any kind of behind the scenes insights. I know I love them when I listen to people talking, how did the story unfold on a granular level? I think that's fun to hear. And also, how does a book develop on the same level, and hopefully I know people are always interested in every aspect of you, Paul. So I hope I was able to help a little bit.
Alex, if anything, it's just been so great to catch up and relive those moments that have really, really affected us. And I mean, the stories are pretty crazy when you actually say them out loud.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get shot at, we weren't Butch and Sundance, but sometimes it felt like we were in real danger, which is not a position I've ever put myself in, telling a story. And I did a book with an FBI agent who had a $500,000 contract on his head, and we had to meet at different diners along the Garden State Parkway every time because he was actively being pursued by the mob. So, and even that felt safer than some of the stuff we did, Paul.
Was that Public Enemies?
No, that was the guy who was originally, his name was Joe Pistone, and he was Donnie Brasco. And we wrote a book called The Way of the Wise Guy, which ended up being a one-man play. It was just the granular life of these wise guys told in his voice, which is very, this one guy, I found him hanging on a meat hook. And, and that was just the level of the storytelling, how, a locker is an ATM for a mobster. That's where they keep their cash. You just grab a handful and lock it up again. And but he still had a price on his head all these years later. So he took it seriously. So did I. I kept my name off that. Hey, tell us where he is.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, but no, I'm proud to be part of this story, and I'm ready for the next.
We definitely want you to keep that part of the story because it's not done being told.
Is there any projects you want to promote? Anything you're working on now?
Some of the books, most of the books I worked on since you have been kind of boring, to be honest. Looking back,
I'm so sorry to hear that.
But I did write my first nonfiction book. I'm sorry, fiction book, where I concocted. I worked with one of the leading whistleblower attorneys in D.C. And the hero of our story is a whistleblower attorney, and concocted this story about AI and a secret government project, stuff like that. So, which I love, and hopefully that'll come out soon. And you can give me a plug then, that'd be great. But otherwise, anybody who needs a story told can check my website, alextres.com.
Beautiful. Well, don't forget to just make sure that you leave time for us because we have a lot of stuff coming up.
Oh, always. Yep. I'm in, and and there's aspects of this outside of the investigations that have so much potential. The show, the you as the host of a DNA show, all of that stuff needs to happen. And we're going to get the right person to show up and help us.
That's it. The script that we're working on right now. I mean, it's the whole thing is we want to help people, and in order to do that, we need to stay busy and stay in this game.
Right. And tell your story as truthfully and as grittily as we can in different formats, because that will unlock other people and give them the courage to take the first steps. Because it's very easy to live with a lie on one level, but not on every level. You pay a price. So that's kind of your message. And keep going, guys, man. It's there are secrets still out there, and they're there. We've got to get to your brother and sister. There's so many ways to go, and this is what you need: dedicated young people. And as the old ones fade away, but really keep going, Paul, man. I mean, I admire the hell out of you. So, and Tracey, I've heard nothing but fantastic things about you. So this is the new A-team. And you are still Face, I believe, Paul, right? Isn't that your favorite?
I just love it when a plan comes together.
A huge thank you to Alex Tresniowski for joining us today and for helping tell Paul's incredible story with the honesty, compassion, and depth it deserved.
Alex didn't just co-author The Foundling and True Identity. He became a friend who helped me process a lifetime of questions and turn them into something that could help others searching for their own answers.
If you haven't read the books yet, I highly recommend picking up both The Foundling and True Identity. Visit our website at thefronczakfiles.com and click on the Books and Film tab to find links to Audible and Amazon, where Paul's books can be purchased. They're powerful reads that reveal the human side of one of the most extraordinary identity cases ever told.
And if you or someone you know is searching for their own truth or believes they're connected to a missing or unidentified person, visit us at thefronczakfiles.com to learn how our team can help.
Next week's episode begins the Fronczak Files journey of bringing our passion, expertise, and teamwork to solving cases for real people with real questions about who they are. Join us for episode 3 as we help a family who paid thousands of dollars for professional genealogy and DNA research, only to discover the results were wrong.
The Fronczak Files is produced by Foundling Endeavors, LLC. For more information, visit thefronczakfiles.com or follow us on social media at The Fronczak Files.